Hi, everyone. It is Janelle from the Bad Taste Crime Podcast, and I am here for another Kettles in Crime. Don't forget to stop on over to Casting Whimsy Tea, who is in partnership bringing you Kettles and Crimes. They have magnificent tea, no crime at all. And if you use BTC Pod, you get 10% off any order in person or online. Now, for today's Kettles and Crimes, we're going to take a look at the illicit tea trade, aka tea smuggling. Now, I'm sure you're very familiar with the Boston Tea Party and the fact that it is about taxation. But before this, there was something else kind of ruminating in Britain between 1730 to 1760. Now, tea was a big deal. It was the drink of choice amongst settlers and, to a degree, amongst colonists in the colonies. Of course, because of the taxation, then coffee became super popular. But tea was still the drink. And taxation of tea was out of control. Not to mention the fact that they were having to import tea from all over the place because, well, growing it in England wasn't possible. So large-scale tea smuggling rings started to come into play. And one of the most famous tea smuggling rings was the Hawkhurst Gang in 1747. Now, they operated this tea smuggling ring off the south coast of England, and they would come into Dorset carrying tons and tons of illegally smuggled tea. Now, in September of 1747, a customs officer actually intercepted a boat off the coast of Dorset who was carrying 2 tons of tea. Now, they were taken, obviously seized, and then stored at a customs house in Poole. But the smugglers decided they were going to steal it back. And 60 members of the gang took part in a raid on the customs house and retrieved their smuggled tea. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people in the area got wind of all of this tea smuggling, and people started coming out of the woodwork to talk about how they knew all about the tea smuggling ring, and how they recognized one man in particular, John Diamond. He was supposedly the guy. In February of 1748, another customs officer was set out to kind of head on over to a magistrate to get some things handled and stopped for a drink at a pub in Rowland's Castle. This would prove to be a bad decision because the owner of this particular pub had 2 sons who were smugglers, and unfortunately, when he walked in, everyone kind of knew who he was and that he was a customs guy, and so there was a lot of suspicion. Now, shortly after his arrival, members of the Hawkhurst Gang arrived and proceeded to get blasted drunk with the gentleman. It is then suggested that they took the man and got rid of him. They're not entirely sure how, but there is stated that some whipping was involved and hanging, and the body was gotten rid of. So now they're straight up killing for tea. They assumed, because of the fact that they were this criminal posse, that no one would speak against them. But they were wrong. They thought their silence was going to be protected. Unfortunately, the government started to give out large rewards for anyone in the gang who was arrested. And the whereabouts of the bodies of the men who had disappeared, the customs agents, were revealed. And authorities did eventually realize where the bodies were and other people who were murdered because of tea smuggling. So, one by one, the Hawkhurst Gang started to be brought in because people were just giving them up left and right. There was an outcry of people in the community who were saying, the brutality of these crimes don't match what they're doing. Why are they murdering people just to smuggle tea? And so eventually all of the Hawkhurst gang was brought in, and most of them were whipped to death or put to death. They did eventually find a barn, and in the barn there was a bunch of missing bags of tea. And so it's kind of a sordid tale. Because this happened in 1747, there's a lot of additional accounts that may or may not be true, and they do involve some barbaric murders of other people. They say that there aren't just the isolated incidents that were reported originally, and they do expect that there were many other people who were killed in collusion, or because they saw, or because they might have spoken about the Hawkhurst gang's tea smuggling. So, that has been another Kettles and Crime. Don't forget to head over to the Bad Taste Crime podcast to see our newest episode, and check out Casting Whimsy Tea to get you a bag of totally legal tea. And maybe a scone or a shortbread cookie, because those are damn good. All right, friends, we will see you next time, and we hope you enjoyed this Kettles and Crime.